they might set themselves up to look like a pharmacy. So when you walk in, you'll have sort of an entry room. You'll be greeted where you have to fill out, say, your paperwork, and you can't go back into the room that has the product until you're sort of invited back. So they set themselves up to look like a doctor's office, or to look like what you might expect sort of a pharmacy might look like, a waiting room, an area where you get the medicine that you're looking for. But in terms of their selling practices, it's not set up like that at all. So they are definitely, when you go, you see a wide range of dispensaries, some that are fairly nice with nice artwork on the wall, others that it's just sort of small rundown area. And you can see that same variation, like you said, if you look at bars across the city. You know, they're serving two different clientele. And that's the sense that we got while we were going to all of these dispensaries. Particular populations would use specific dispensaries, but we're not quite sure why. So for example, we had one dispensary where people would go and they would come out and we'd ask them, you know, what did you buy here? What did you get? And they would talk about the Chex Mix. So there was Chex Mix made with butter that had been infused with cannabis. And so for whatever reason, there were a group of people that's what they wanted to buy when they went to dispensaries. Some of the dispensaries, when we went to them, would market to different populations. So there's a dispensary that's located just a mile or so from LAX, the airport. And they would have price specials if you could show your boarding pass. So you either were going out that day or were coming in that day, then they would give you a discount on your purchase. If you look at medical marijuana, a lot of this happens because there's not a lot of regulation around who's being given these recommendations for marijuana. So if you look at the doctors who are prescribing in Los Angeles, if you go down to the Venice Beach Boardwalk, there will be people advertising, get your medical marijuana recommendation here. And so obviously that's not targeting people who have true medical problems, because if you're walking on the Venice Beach Boardwalk, you're probably not looking for a doctor right that minute, right? So I think there's, on one hand, if you're only going to be a medical state, then you really have to pay attention to who's prescribing, how they're prescribing, and have some oversight of the system. And then second, one of the things that we talk a lot when we talk about market segmentation with alcohol is that you reduce the density of alcohol outlets, then what's going to happen is you're going to have less of the segmentation, less of the stratification, and more populations mixing. And when you have different populations mixing, you tend to have fewer problems. So for example, if you have a lot of bars and all the people who tend to be more aggressive and loud are all going to this one bar, then what you're going to see is a lot more violence. And so that's going to be termed sort of the violent bar. But if you have fewer bars and everybody has to go to the same places, you're going to have a larger range of population, and so you're going to see fewer problems. So the same idea would hold then if this is true with marijuana. So can you have, if you reduce the density of dispensaries or you put limits on how many dispensaries can be in certain locations, would you then see fewer problems related to those dispensaries?